Canada will join the European Union. At first, you may think that's a dumb idea. Canada joining the Europeans seems illogical. They are just too different and it doesn't make sense. After all, Canada is a North American country with a rich history and strong ties to the United States. Even if the current administration wishes for Canada to become US territory, wouldn't relations return to normal in just 4 years at the next US elections? At the same time, the EU is a political and economic union built on the European continent. How could Canada join when they sit on another continent? Don't worry. Things are actually pretty simple, surprisingly easy to understand.
Last week, I spent some time with two government officials for Canada. I was asking them how realistic is it that Canada would be the 51st state. And they told me there is a path. Alberta is first, and if they sign on, Saskatchewan would follow, and then you go west to British Columbia. There is a movement in Canada to join us. I want to get your thoughts on that and how that's proceeding.
So it's true. Thank you, Brian. It's true. A lot of people in Canada are liking becoming our beautiful, cherished 51st state. They'll have to pay much lower taxes. They'll have the ultimate security. You know, they don't pay very much for security right now because they rely on us, which is really unfair to us. They make cars that we could make, and they send them back into the United States. They make a lot of things, including the sending of oil and everything. We don't need their oil. We don't need their lumber.
Let's first start with the relationship between America and Canada. Canada and the United States of America are the world's two most similar countries. Their people speak the same language, eat similar foods, watch the same entertainment, work similar job, celebrate most of the same holidays, and share the same daily routine. In other words, they have the same culture, with one key exception. Canada bases their identity on not being American. When sharing so much in common with a country as powerful as the United States, Canadians look for anything to set them apart. They spend a lot of time coming up with reasons why they are different, or why Americans are actually worse. This idea shows up often in politics. Canadian leaders and media use the term American style to criticize ideas they believe do not fit with Canadian values. For instance, someone who supports looser gun laws might be labeled as promoting an American-style approach to guns. Similarly, suggestions to change Canada's public health care or even to abandon the monarchy in favor of a republic are often dismissed as being too American. The American style slur is more commonly directed at conservatives by liberals than vice versa, in part because it's popular on the left to view Canada as a country defined by an embrace of progressive ideology, while portraying Americans' flaws as the result of the country's conservatism. But it's rare to find a Canadian politician or party who hasn't accused his opponent of being too American at one time or another, even if it's actually not true. Many interpret Canada's history as being one long struggle against US domination, making anti-Americanism a Canadian founding mission. With Donald Trump as president, it's easy to see why. Canadians who follow this perspective will view the United States as the single greatest threat to Canadian sovereignty, and the country that is always on the brink of conquering Canada, not just militarily, but culturally, politically, and economically as well. Canadian history books usually take a close look at historical events like the War of 1812, Irish-American attacks on Canada during the mid-800s, the Fenian raids, and other instances where Americans seem to be plotting the annexation of Canada. The implication is Americans have a long habit of looking at Canada with hunger in their eyes, and Canadians must remain vigilant. Judging, teasing, and even hating America is a central part of the Canadian identity and forms a persistent bias that runs through most aspects of Canadian society and culture. For various reasons, the default position of many Canadians is that America, Americans, and the American things are generally bad and need to be opposed. So you can imagine when Donald Trump started calling for the annexation of Canada, a wave of patriotism flooded the hearts and minds of most Canadians.
The United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the US tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time.
It is through this resurrection of Canadian pride when society realized that if Canada wanted to have a chance against the United States, being strictly economical, like a trade war, or also cultural, they need a strong ally to back them up. And what better ally than the second most powerful economic force in the world, the European Union. Canada and the EU share many values, including democracy, human rights, freedom of expression, and the responsibility to their citizens, to which the politicians are accountable. This makes us natural allies with very close historical, cultural, and ideological ties. It is only natural for free democracies in the West to strengthen their relationship when threatened by any individual with power. But let's not beat around the bush. The question is, could the European Union replace the United States as the most important ally? And could economic benefits of membership outweigh the partnership with the United States? One clear benefit of joining the EU could be strengthening of Canada's global positioning. With rising global tensions between free democracies with strong institutions and shifting alliances done by leaders like Donald Trump, aligning more closely with Europe will offer Canada a new platform for being a global policymaker alongside Europe. It will pave the way for even deeper economic integration with European markets, which are among the largest and most advanced in the world. Very important, it will also help Canada reduce its heavy reliance on the United States as its primary trading partner. Canada's economic landscape is very interconnected with that of its southern neighbor. A shift towards the EU's economic policies could lead to complication in trade relations with the United States, and normally that would be enough for Canada to ditch the idea. However, it seems that we live in a time when the US would cut the trade relations unprovoked, leaving Canada no choice but to join the European Union, or at the very least have an agreement similar to the Norwegian EU deal. You might say that this Canadian initiative will destroy American influence and importance in the region, and you would be right. It's a very bad outcome for the United States. But first, it's important to understand that EU membership is more than just a change in trade policies. It's a transformation of national identity. The EU is a union that was built on centuries of shared history, democracy, culture, and desire for peace in Europe. Integrating into such a union could be a huge undertaking and it will require the approval of the majority. Such a decision would meet difficulties. One of the primary challenges is geographical. The European Union, by its very nature, is designed for countries located within or closely connected to Europe, so reform is needed. EU membership requires full integration into a framework of laws, regulations, and standards that have evolved over decades to reflect Europe's unique history and challenges. For Canada, which has built its own legal and economic systems, this would mean a profound change in many domestic policies. Experts argue that while Canada shares democratic values and cultural similarities with a European nation, make the idea intriguing, but the sheer scale of the necessary changes would be a monumental task. Despite these challenges, the evolving nature of international alliances in a world of dictators and empires is making Canada and Europe go more closely together. Could we see a scenario where instead of full membership, Canada forges a stronger, closer alliance with the EU, similar to the deal between Norway and the EU? The idea of Canada joining the European Union is both exciting and complex. On one side, a closer relationship with Europe could give Canada more power in the world, open up new economic changes, and help reduce its heavy reliance on the United States. On the other side, there are big challenges like the need to change many laws. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this idea. Do you think Canada should try to work closer together with the European Union, or are these challenges way too big? Please share your views in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more.